back to the some of the things along this, what we were speaking about, and you mentioned a few examples in your book. I want to go back to the authentication of art. Obviously, the blockchain can be used to track the from the original artists, or I mean, if they're dead now, you could track the artist once somebody has authenticated that it was the real one,
Yep.
and there won't be any knockoffs and things like that. But how do you attach the authenticity to the actual piece of art, right? Where somebody can't, if you put a QR code on it on the back or something like that, somebody just can't rip that off.
Right. So there is when we think about a use case like art, for example, right? The actual accounting and transacting of who owns and what's what, and how pricing is decided and how royalties are paid, etc., is perfect for the blockchain use case. Mm-hmm. But on the edges of that, you still need inventions that will allow you to facilitate uniqueness, mm-hmm. right? So for art, for example, you need the ability to scan that thing, both from a 3D perspective or something like that, to understand both the painting as well as the bumps of the paint and all that type of stuff to recognize what it is. But once you've got uniqueness and you can attribute it to it, the ability to transact through the system is there. Now, where I think the rubber hits the road, and actually one of my student teams in this semester's class at Syracuse University is building their project around this exact problem. Where the rubber hits the road and where you actually get some relief from not having to depend on those end identity points is if there were to be a copy and it was to be misrepresented in the system, within the blockchain protocol, just built into the fabric, you will see very quickly that there are two copies. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Or 3 copies or 4 copies. Now, you might not, blockchain is not going to help you figure out which one's real and which one's fake, but you will see very quickly that there are multiple copies being transacted. And so if you're going to go buy this bottle of water and it's supposed to be a masterpiece, and as soon as you go on the blockchain system and to pay for it, system says, wait, there's another one of these around there. Whoa. Right. And so you've got sort of these societal impacts, right, that we don't have today. If you're about to go buy something that's unique today, it's very difficult for you to know whether there's somebody selling another one of it in Slovenia somewhere. Right. You follow what I'm saying? So there are those aspects of it. But when you bring that back to the protocol and the core of what it is, it's the ability to be able to trust in the accounting methods and the inventory methods and the transactions related to a particular object as it represents data. So, a good example sort of is, let's think about one that can simplify that a little bit. Let's say, your frequent flyer status. Okay, so let's say you have, some fancy status on American Airlines, whatever it's called, platinum, gold, or whatever it is, right? Let's just say it's the fancy status. Today, that status and that data point is fairly illiquid, sorry. You can't pass that off to your brother. Let's say your brother is traveling tomorrow, right. Okay? And he doesn't have fancy status at American Airlines. And you just wanted to transfer that from you to him temporarily for a day, and you're willing to give American Airlines back a month of it in exchange for 1 day for your brother. You can't do it right now. Not only they won't allow you, it's very complex to facilitate, right? There's a lot of systems that has to be built underneath that you have to depend on. And when you raise the level of sort of the infrastructure in the blockchain fabric to be able to automatically do things like that, where you can't double spend, you can't misrepresent, we actually know what the copy of the thing is and who it's attributed to in real time, you start to see use cases where liquidity of things like rights and privileges and ownership comes up into our existence, just like currency is liquid. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Money is very liquid. Yes, Bitcoin is more liquid than fiat currency, but currency as a category with Bitcoin inside of it is fairly liquid. Mm-hmm. But your privileges, your rights, your ownership, it's not liquid. Right. right? My wife and I, we had to get rid of one of our cars the other day. We went on Lease Trader to get rid of the car, okay? And coincidentally, the guy who actually ended up wanting the car lives like 3/4 mile away from our house. Okay, I actually connected with the guy and grabbed a drink with him.
All right.
Okay, but I paid $299, I think, to be listed on Lease Trader. He paid $299 to meet each other on Lease Trader. Then we had to pay a whole transfer fee, almost $500 to transfer it. It took almost 2 months to do the transaction. He was 3/4 mile down the road from me. Okay, but think about how illiquid something like just the ownership of a car lease is,
Right.
and how it cost us each a couple of $100 just to do that transaction when we know each other.
And previously, before, a car lease was almost completely illiquid.
There you go.
Before Lease Trader came up, that's the first I'm hearing of them. But yeah, I mean, lease, you would have had to go back to the company, and you really probably couldn't even hand off a lease. You had to hand it back to the company, and they would.
Exactly. And what the blockchain protocol does is, because of its ability to allow us to quickly see fraud in the data set, is it allows you to flip a flag, and an ownership flag that goes from here to here. Okay, that's it. We got it. There's some paperwork that needs to be happening behind the scenes that will facilitate it. This is why smart contracts, which I think is where Ethereum is leading, is such an important aspect of the blockchain protocol. Now that you have data that you can trust, that humans don't have to intervene and verify, okay, you can actually write contracts that will automatically transact, right? That's the notion of smart contracts, right? Smart contracts are quite frankly, the language that lawyers help us agree on today, represented in code, which will be executed automatically when certain data points are hit. Okay? So imagine a smart contract for a lease swap. It would facilitate it very quickly. If you were to take a smart contract and land it on, I don't know, Ford's database, right, or Mercedes-Benz database of cars and lending systems, you wouldn't want that smart contract to execute, because you wouldn't know that the data could be trusted. You'd be afraid that someone can misrepresent the data and mess things up, and you wouldn't have any idea what happened. You can lose the car in the noise, so to speak. But when you have a data set that is trusted and transparent, and you can see changes in that data set, you can see fraud, okay? And fraud can be easily identified and taken out. Now you can sit comfortably and go, yeah, let the contract execute. As long as the data says it's there, let the contract execute, right? Give you a really, really simple example. You know, sometimes when I go to Syracuse University, I hire someone to drive me there, because it's easier for me to spend 5 hours in the car working, as opposed to 5 hours in the car driving there back and forth, okay? And whatever, let's say it's $100 or $200 I have to pay a driver once I get back home, right? Once I get back home, I got to find the cash to pay the person, or it's a credit card, or I do a Chase Quick Pay or something like that. You know, I would want a system that would be built on top of that, that has the GPS location of my car and my heartbeat on the blockchain, okay? And as long as I get back home and I'm still alive, you know, within a certain amount of time, automatically $100 or $200 should just be paid to that guy, right? Do you follow what I'm saying? So very simple example.
Transit, he doesn't get paid.
It doesn't get paid, right? If it's an accident and I die, it doesn't get paid, right? There you go. So really simple example, but you can see how the fabric itself, because what it does is it allows you to know whether you can trust what the data says. And as long as it says that, you can start to transact on top of it. It makes smart contracts very, very, very important, right? To me, if I were to draw another analogous, you know, smart contracts are to blockchain what HTML is to the internet, right? HTML initially was not a part of the internet, right? The markup language is what allowed it to enter commerce, you know, first by putting up storefronts. Right?
But when you talk about the internet, then you're talking about like the 60s internet.
I'm talking about the TCP/IP protocol.
The HTML wasn't part of it originally? Like
the hypertext markup language, right? Which is
Berners-Lee.
Right. So this was a way to describe all the information and to be able to sort of standardize how browsers will see it and consume it. But the underlying fabric of TCP/IP, of being able to exchange data from point to point, regardless of what the format of the data was or how it was marked up, right? It was highly accelerated by HTML, right?
Got it.
So smart contracts, to me, are the part that will highly accelerate the fundamentals of blockchain into commerce as we see it today.
Great. You've talked a lot about the security of the blockchain, and that's one of the beauties of it, where if there's enough people on enough nodes on the blockchain network, as long as it's not a private one where there's only a few, if there's millions of people making a consensus, or really millions of computers making a consensus about the validity of a smart contract, the validity of data, things like that, it's pretty clear that the blockchain gives you the ability to trust immutable data.
Yep.
That that really can't be changed, at least.
Well, it can be changed, but you'll see the changes.
Right. It's verifiable. But right now, a lot of times you still hear about hacks of Bitcoins and people get stolen, and that is because people build applications on top of the blockchain, and they in Bitcoin's case, it's usually wallets and things like that, or exchanges, and they get stolen from the applications that are on the blockchain, because these applications are generally centrally controlled.
Right.
Somebody or some company created an app or an exchange. So talk about the security, all the great things that are able to be done with the blockchain. People still have to write applications on it. So is there a way to go directly to the blockchain for very important items of transferability, such as houses, if you're transacting real estate, that's so important, you know, or, $1 million,
any ownership, right?
Anything, right? How will the wheels of commerce get comfortable with using applications that are still centrally controlled, essentially, on top of the blockchain?
So that was a long question. There was about four questions in there. So let's deal with security first, and then the distributed nature of applications, and then where do I see commerce welcoming or rejecting blockchain applications, right? So I think for sure there are still opportunities to improve security on the blockchain protocol. Having said that, I think we got to think about like electric cars to understand which of our reactions are rational and which are irrational, right? So when electric cars first came out, one of the major concerns around electric cars was that, the batteries could catch on fire, right? Not recognizing that it's electric, it's clean fuel, it'll run faster, right? It's zero emission, it's rechargeable. All that stuff went out the window. Oh my God, the batteries could catch on fire. Also not recognizing that combustion engines actually have fire in them, and those cars catch on fire all the time, right? It's almost like we have this irrational reaction as a species to be overly critical about new things, irregardless of their benefits to us.
Well, the
right?
industry obviously would.
Right. So yes, right. There are security opportunities within the blockchain protocol, but look at the absence of security we have in the current state, right? So I think that's the first. The second is around distributed apps and control. It's important to understand, I think, that good blockchain distributed applications are not built by one company. They're built by ecosystems of trading partners that want to agree to transact in this more transparent, liquid, and expeditious way, right? So like, let's just pick a brand. Apple can't decide to build its own blockchain. It's like, okay, so yeah, but who are the counterparties that are now trusted that we can rely on transparency from, right? We're like, maybe it's between our departments. Like, okay, yeah, so there are intra-department blockchains that can be spent. But most good blockchain instantiations or applications of instantiation on blockchain that I see are multiple parties agreeing within an industry to collaborate in this new trusted way. Okay, you can imagine, 10% of the restaurants deciding, you know what, I don't want to be on Yelp anymore. because I can't control 33% of the reviews that are on there, and they're misrepresenting my business. So we are going to agree to go on the trusted version of Yelp. Okay? So, but you see, it's a community that has to do that together. The restaurant example is a really, really interesting one, man. There's so much fraud and misrepresentation from a reputational standpoint there, but I will leave that alone. Now, when we think about commerce today and large organizations today that are thinking about how they go on blockchain or are chasing the blockchain train, there you go, that's a nice soundbite, right? We have to think about what state of commerce are we in today? I believe today we're in a state of commerce that I call the experience marketplace, which is you're basically outmaneuvering the other person by creating a better experience, right? Amazon.com is a great example of someone who used experience to hijack hundreds of billions of dollars of transactions, right? Prior to this model of commerce, we were in what I would call the pricing market, right? Which is it a better product? Is it a lower price? Is it a higher price? Okay, today we're in the experience market. Now in these two models of commerce, experience is probably about 15, 20 years old. Prior to that, product and pricing was probably another 15 to 20 years old. You being a first to market was good, but it was not always an absolute win because a fast follower can come and sort of beat you, right? In the experience market, yes, you could be a first to market experience, but a fast follower can come and take you over. And incumbents can still survive. An incumbent, a big established organization that has a crappy experience today in the experience marketplace, can be attacked by a startup who comes in with a very, very interesting experience, but they can still survive because they within a couple of months or a year and a half, they create a good experience as well and they survive. I believe we're going into a trust economy. And in the trust economy, you differentiate by how trusted and transparent you are. And I believe that in the trust economy, you're either first to market or dead. Because in the trust economy, if you think about how we're wired as human beings, once you distrust someone, it's hard to trust them. Right. You know, I don't know if you dated before marriage, but if you had someone that sort of broke your trust, an ex-girlfriend or an ex-partner or something like that, right? It's hard to really trust them again. So all of these currently distrusted large incumbent companies that are bending people over a barrel left and right with the open permission to lie with things like marketing and misrepresent under a limited liability, in the trust economy, it's going to be really hard for them to wake up the next morning and go, hey guys, sorry about the last 20 years of bending you over the barrel. Right. Okay? We're super, super, super trusted. And transparent, by the way. Sorry about the 20 years of lying. Please, just forgive us. No, we're good now. Trust me, you can trust me, right? In the trust economy, these large organizations are going to have a very difficult time surviving. Incumbents are not going to be able to withstand the competitive pressures when a new entrant enters the market and goes, we're just like them. We're just trusted. And it's going to be really hard to do that switch. This is why, to the last part of your question, when I think about how large commerce is trying to adopt blockchain and how they're trying to, you know, right now, dude, they're like people trying to put pancakes on a blockchain, okay? You can put blockchain on anything and get excited right now. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're going to see new business networks start to come up of new entrants into the marketplace that are willing to subscribe to this sort of next generation ethos of being more people-centric than the current generation currently is. Not that they won't be profit-centric, they will just be more people-centric. And I think that's the shift that we're going to see in trusted commerce.
That's great.